Hi, this is Stan Phelps from marketinglanyap.com, and welcome to episode 4 of the Purple Goldfish video podcast. Today we're going to talk about why purple and why a goldfish. We're going to take a trip out to Lexus and talk about how they go above and beyond in their service. And lastly, we're going to do a quick update on the Purple Goldfish project. Today's podcast is sponsored by Synergy Events, an award-winning experiential marketing agency. Thanks, and enjoy the podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Purple Goldfish webcast. Today is the $25,000 question that Stan gets all the time, but I never tire of hearing of. Stan, it's actually two questions. Why a goldfish, and why is it purple?
Why is it a purple goldfish? So let's talk about a goldfish first. So your business, your product or service is very much like a goldfish. And I know you don't know much about goldfish.
Why don't you tell me more about goldfish? Stan knows more about goldfish than anybody I've ever met, so strap yourselves in.
So if you're a goldfish, your growth is determined by 5 factors. So the first one is how big of a pond or whatever the bowl that you're in. The bigger the bowl or the bigger the pond, the bigger you're allowed to grow. So that's a simple one. That's just akin to the size of the market that you're in.
Okay.
So the second one is how many other goldfish occupy that pond or that bowl. That's going to determine how big you can get.
So even in a bigger pond, if there's more fish,
right,
it can have an effect.
It can have an effect on you. So that's kind of competition. And then you have what the quality of the water is. So the nutrients in the water, whether it's cloudy and whatnot. So that's kind of the economy, or kind of the business environment. And then you have the first 120 days of that goldfish life. How they're treated is actually going to be a determining factor of how they're going to grow. So when they call them a fry when they're young, small fry, right?
So wait, the term small fry comes from goldfish, not French fries.
Small fry comes from a goldfish, yeah, because they're quite small when they're born. So the idea of, if you're treated well within the first 120 days, kind of like as a startup, if you get out to a good start, it's going to affect your growth down the road. And the last thing, and this is one that fascinates me the most, is the growth of a goldfish is essentially determined on their genetic makeup. So how they're differentiated from all of the other goldfish. So if you're a goldfish and you've got good genes, you're highly differentiated, you're going to grow much faster. So think about it in terms of your business. The only thing you can control is how you're different. I mean, if you've already picked your product or service and you've already eclipsed the 120 days, the only thing you really have control over is how you differentiate yourself. So that's the goldfish.
And it struck me as you were saying this, a lot of people probably step into a business. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a startup. So right. If I go to work for somebody, I can't affect a lot of the past history or circumstances. But what I can do from day one is how do we differentiate ourselves
right
going forward?
How do you kind of stand out in a sea of sameness?
Hey.
I love the sea of sameness, by the way.
The sea of sameness.
So how do you stand out? And if you don't stand out, and if you're not different,
so are you leading us into the second half?
Yeah.
Is purple?
So purple. So purple is a direct ode to Seth Godin. Hat tip to Seth. His seminal book, great marketing book. If you haven't bought Purple Cow yet, you need to run straight to Amazon, right?
Run straight to Amazon. If you haven't read Purple Cow yet, you're probably not even watching this podcast, but right. Great book. So and probably the first thing that people think of when they hear Purple Goldfish in marketing circles
is Purple Cow. And for those of you, and for the few that aren't familiar with Purple Cow, essentially Seth talked about in this book the idea that he gave the story of him driving through Paris with his family, and he got to the outskirts of the city, and they saw a cow, and all the kids were up against the window. They thought it was the coolest thing just outside of the city of Paris to see a cow, but sure enough, another 20 minutes going through the countryside, they saw hundreds of cows, so much so that no one even noticed it, right? And he talks about the idea that if those brown or white or black cows, if one of them was purple, then that would be remarkable.
That would stand out.
So his whole idea of the purple cow is that you need to build remarkability into your product.
So Seth has established purple is the color of standing out in the marketing.
Yeah, in marketing, he is he definitely owns the fact that purple represents being remarkable or being differentiated and whatnot. I think the difference between a purple cow is that I think mainly that's about making your product different. And what I'm saying with the purple goldfish is maybe it's not so much what the product is, but how you deliver it, and the little extra that you give can be that differentiator. And I think, a cow could be 1,000 pounds. So that's a big beast. A goldfish is pretty small.
Well, yeah, you've clearly defined what makes a goldfish,
right?
And you've painted what how that reflects in marketing and business. So
right,
that makes perfect sense. All right,
so that's the purple cow. Excuse me, the purple goldfish.
That makes a lot of sense. And so when people say, "What the heck is a purple goldfish?" two things come to mind: what you just said, and also it's easier to spell than lanyap.
Right. Much easier than marketing lanyap.
But if you're watching this podcast, hopefully you're taking your first steps towards becoming a purple goldfish yourself and going that extra mile for your customers. So I think in the next podcast, what we'll do is maybe we'll get more into some of the details about what you were just talking about. So that's enough for this time. I'm Jack. This is Stan. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Hey, it's Jack, and we're here at Lexus in Greenwich, and this is another great example of a purple goldfish. What's their lanyap? What's their little above and beyond that they do for their clients? Well, when you get your car serviced here, what they do is they clean your car. They'll clean the outside and they'll also vacuum the inside, which is a great thing. I don't know when's the last time I actually vacuumed the inside of my car. So that's a great above and beyond thing. But there was one person who told us when they got their car serviced, it rained. So washing the car kind of defeated the purpose. So instead what they did was they filled the tank up with gas, which actually may be a better thing than getting your car washed. So that was another example of going the extra mile. But maybe even more than that was there was another person who got their car serviced, and because of the timing, they had to get the car back to them quickly. They didn't have time to do the washing. So instead what they did was they gave them a voucher to go to another car cleaning place here in Greenwich, and they got their car cleaned when it was at their convenience. So Lexus of Greenwich, you all know the brand name Lexus, but these guys go above and beyond and are building loyalty and word of mouth in a really great way. So good job, Lexus, and keep up the good work. We'll see you guys next time.
So I want to finish up today's podcast with just a quick update of where we are with the Purple Goldfish project. This is my goal of getting 1,001 examples of marketing lanyap. We just hit the 300 mark this week. Very excited about that. We also made the trip to the Thomas Merton house and dropped off the first 300 non-perishable food items. So I want to thank everyone who's given me an example so far. Again, that's each example that's submitted, one item of non-perishable food goes to the Thomas Merton Center. So thank you, and keep sending those examples in.